Well, I come from a town. Town I was born in had 970 people when I was born, and so I grew up in the most rural places. And that was actually one of the biggest communities members of my family had ever lived in. They root back to places with 300 people and 200, and farms, and so that's where I come from. And one of the things that I always start with is telling people that rural America is multiracial, multi-ethnic, and far more diverse than I think our national media even begins to understand. If you look at the main streets in rural towns, they are being revitalized, uh, particularly by Latino immigrants, but also by Asian American immigrants. I mean, there are real amazing things happening. There are now small towns in Wisconsin that are majority immigrant families, right? Because people have come, they have revitalized those towns, they've rebuilt those towns. It's an amazing thing. Now, it doesn't mean that rural areas aren't predominantly white in many states, but I always remind people that roughly a quarter of Black Americans live in rural counties, mostly in the South, right? But a substantial population. That the boom areas for obviously the Latino population, but also for Asian American population is rural areas, right? Because they're moving there, they're working there, they're creating things. And so if we understand it as that, first off, we have to recognize rural America isn't what our media tells us it is. It's much more. It has a lot of diversity, a lot of distinction within it. The other thing that I always emphasize to people is this, that those blue and red maps are useless. They're a nightmare because they don't tell you the actual percentages in those counties. Many of those counties that you look at that are red on the map are 45% blue, right?
Right.
They've got fights within them, real battles. And what in Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin would not have been reelected if it wasn't for rural Democrats. She got a great vote out of Madison, a very liberal town. Great vote out of Milwaukee, a multiracial, multi-ethnic town. I mean, she got great votes in these places, but she also held her own in the rural areas. She was endorsed for reelection by the Farm Bureau. I mean, that's wild. But it was there because she's been good on farm issues. What that means, what that translates to is that for the Democratic Party, which has been such a mess on so many issues for so long, is that they need to get better on rural. They need to talk to these folks. There are rural Democrats out there doing the work. They're opening their headquarters. They're knocking on doors. I can take you to the places and show you people that are putting so much effort and energy into this, but they do need messaging from the national level, right? And one of the things I would tell you is that the Democratic Party will do dramatically better in rural areas if Democratic nominees for president simply include 3 lines in their speeches. Not another rural post office will close if we are elected. Not another rural school will close if we are elected. And not another rural hospital will close if we are elected.
Yeah.
You go out and say just those 3 lines in a speech and you stick to it, you watch some of those numbers shift. The reason Trump and Republicans do well in rural areas is often because people don't think there's a big difference between the two parties, and then they default to the anger, the division, right? But if you gave them a real alternative, I think we open up a whole new avenue for politics. That does not deny the reality of ugly politics and people who do vote on the basis of race or antipathy toward folks or something. But that happens. I know that's there. Not denying that. But what I'm saying is one of the counters to that is an outreach that actually says to rural people, we see you, we hear you, we want to respond to your actual problems, not to try and make you hate somebody else or not to try and make you see somebody else as a problem. There's space there. There's so much space there. And I'm, even though we're staying longer than usual, I love talking about these rural politics issues because it's frankly one of the spaces where both parties have so much to learn because both parties tend to treat rural folks as an afterthought that they just throw slogans, good slogans and bad at, rather than actually going out and talking to the people. So I really thank you for giving me a chance to say that.
Thank you so much, John Nichols, the great John Nichols, national affairs correspondent at The Nation. We can't wait to read your piece. We depend on your work, so please, keep doing it, brother, and let's have you back on very soon.
I appreciate it, and hey, I really appreciate what you folks do, and I love, the reporting that you folks have been doing in Wisconsin. Some people come here and they just come for a minute, right? And they pop in on the tarmac of the airport. You've got some reporters that have embedded themselves, and that's a really big deal. It makes the reporting so much better. So thank you for treating Wisconsin and America seriously.
Great to see you, John.
Thank you.